DND number 4. Weeds Grow in Jesus' Name. Chapter 11. Bree made her way toward her room, but stopped when she got to Ricky's door. Moving forward, she laid her cheek against the cool, hard surface. Slowly, she placed her hand on the doorknob and turned it. She went inside the room. His bed was made. Everything neat and in its place. That's Ricky. He said it was good feng shui to keep your surroundings uncluttered. He also said cleanliness is next to godliness. Moving slowly around his room, she touched things he'd touched. A book, an iPod, a pair of nunchucks, a lamp, some cologne. She opened his dresser drawers and touched his clothing and opened his closet and walked through, remembering the conversation he'd had with Jeffy the other day. It suddenly hit her. He was so right. The clothes were not important. Not now. She'd wear rags the rest of her life if she could have Ricky back. Speak to him one more time. Feel his arms around her. What had she done? Ricky, she whispered. Where are you? Are you still alive? What's happening to you? She sat on the end of his bed, seeing what he saw when he went to bed at night. Scooting back, she laid her head on his pillow. It smelled of him. And she turned over and buried her face in the pillow and cried until she could cry no more. And then she closed her eyes and fell into a fitful sleep. New scene. Look at me when I talk to you, Tommy screamed, his hand jerking on Ricky's hair. I'd like to. I really would, Tommy, Ricky said weakly. It's just that I can't appear to open my eyes. They seem to be swollen shut. The words were slurred, barely audible. Tommy shook his head as if coming out of a trance. He stood back, surveying his work. Ricky's face was unrecognizable. His chest and thighs were a mass of burns and cuts. 2 fingers on his right hand were broken, yet still, Ricky hadn't told him what he wanted to know. But he would soon. He would because Tommy was about to step it up another notch. Tommy shook his head. Come on, Rick. Do yourself a favor. He reached out gently with both hands and cupped Ricky's face. All you have to do is tell me who threw the knife. How hard can that be? Ricky sniffed, trying to clear his airways. I want to tell you, Tommy. I do. I want to tell. I just need to know what you're going to do with the information. That's all I need. That's all. Tommy dropped his hold and walked away and came back a few steps. What does it matter? I want the truth. Ricky nodded sloppily. I always tell the truth. Yeah, that's another thing I've heard about you. So if you always tell the truth, then just do it. When Ricky didn't answer, Tommy moved forward. Okay. I will. I'm going to tell you the truth, man. I swear. Tommy halted and waited. But just tell me what you intend to do with the information. The expected blow did not come. That worried Ricky. He tried to open his eyes enough to see what was happening. Tommy was setting 2 small stones about the size of a strawberry on the desk. This did not bode well. This, Keno, is a little trick I learned while I was in prison. I learned it firsthand, if you know what I mean, so I'm going to tell you now. You're going to wish you told me what I wanted to know. Ricky swallowed hard, hoping Tommy wasn't right. Tommy came close and bent down and surprised Ricky by reaching down between his legs. He looked up at Ricky's face. Oh, Jesus, help me, Ricky uttered softly. It wasn't a curse. It was a prayer. Yeah, this is where most men get religion. Ricky's respiration doubled. Tommy's hand constricted, and Ricky's chest bowed. His head fell back, and he cried out. The tingling, stabbing pain crept up his body in excruciating waves. Please, God, Ricky's brain cried out. The pain consumed his entire body. His blood boiled. Bile rose. Enough, he thought, please, enough. It seemed to go on and on. It seemed it would never end. And then finally, Tommy let go. Ricky drew in great gasps of air. Sweat poured from his body. Moisture ran from the corners of his eyes. Tommy watched him, imagining and remembering just what Ricky felt as the pain slowly receded. Has some bad mojo, huh? Tommy said, sounding sympathetic. Ricky's words came out on a long, slow groan. Go to hell. Most guys are crying by now, Tommy informed him. I thought I was, Ricky mumbled. Tommy chuckled. You truly are extremely honest. Almost to a fault. I feel your pain, man. I gotta say, you handled it fairly well. Maybe Beth was right. You're not so bad. Maybe you're actually a good guy, Ricky Kino. No, really. I think I've misjudged you. So, we're done? Sorry. And I mean that. I'm sincerely sorry, but I gotta have the information. He moved forward. Are you ready to go again? Can you wait another minute? Are you ready to go again? Can you wait another minute? No problem. He backed away. I know how you feel. It takes a little while for it to stop hurting. Tommy walked to the high window and peered out. It was getting dark. They'd been at it for almost 24 hours. Ricky Kino had been highly entertaining. Tommy found himself enjoying each bit of conversation they shared. However, it was getting late, and he needed to bring this to a close. He looked over at Ricky. You ready yet? Just a few more minutes. It's almost gone. Tommy obligingly waited the requested time, then returned to Ricky's side. So, was it you? Ricky nodded. I'm going to tell you, Tommy, in just a second. I just need to know, if it's me, what happens? Tommy slammed his hands down on Ricky's taped arms. I didn't want to move on to the next step. He walked away and came back. I have to tell you, you're tough. I mean, I've been where you're at, and by now I was willing to drop to my knees and beg. I guess I should be glad that's not what you want from me. Tommy picked up one of the stones and gripped it in his fist. So, this is how it works. If you thought what's happened was bad, when I do it with this rock in my hand, well, I can't even tell you. I get emotional just thinking about it. Tommy grabbed Ricky. He squeezed, the stone pressed, and Ricky's eyes closed, and he cried out. When Tommy finally let go, Ricky found he couldn't breathe. It took several tries before he was able to draw air into his lungs. I'm going to be sick, he said quietly. One of the men grabbed the wastebasket by the desk and held it under Ricky's chin while he emptied the contents of his stomach, which was only water and bile. Are you ready to talk? Tommy said softly, his eyes full of compassion. Ricky nodded and blinked the tears away. Give me a minute, he said breathlessly. Again, Tommy paced around the room, waiting for Ricky's pain to subside. When he came back to Ricky, he was shivering. Are you cold? Tommy asked. Ricky shook his head. No. My body is going into shock. So I need to work fast, huh? Probably. Look, Tommy, I've earned your trust, right? Ricky asked. Absolutely. Ricky breathed deeply several times, trying to calm his trembling body long enough to speak. Then please, just tell me. His head fell back a moment. Ricky had to force himself to continue. You know I'm going to tell you the truth. I give you my word. Just tell me, if it was me who threw the knife, do I die now? Tommy sighed. Why not tell him the consequences? Besides, he'd said please, and it is time to finish this up. No, Rick, if you threw the knife, you don't die. If it was you, then I have to kill someone you love. Ricky nodded. And if my father was the one who threw the knife, then I kill someone he loves. Ricky drew a breath, relief washing over him. My father threw the knife. Tommy came forward. Really? Yes, Ricky said, his voice weak, the words tumbling out between the tremors of his body. We were running toward the creek, and your brother had a knife to Shelley's throat. I pulled the knife. I was going to throw it, but my father, he's better than me, so I tossed the knife to him. Tommy looked closely at Ricky's face. I believe you, he finally said. I have a favor to ask now, Ricky said, his teeth chattering. Tommy nodded. I want to be the one. What one? You said you'd kill someone my father loves. Let it be me. Tommy thought hard. I don't know, Rick. It would be so much easier. I mean, hey, I'm already here, and I'm halfway gone anyway. Let me be the one. You make a good argument, really. But I actually like you. You're something different. I'm not sure that I want to take Ricky Keno away from the world just yet. What would they do without you? What would Bree do without you? Ricky's eyes filled. He mentally said goodbye to her and his father and his entire family. Tommy's question meant he didn't intend to go after Bree. He wants to hurt my father, Ricky thought, so the obvious choices are Shelley, me, or Jeffy. Tommy, please, you got to do this. I think I've earned it. Tommy nodded and thought, I tell you what, we got one more stone to go. I'm going to use that to put you out now. Ricky's head fell back. He thought it was over. And while you're out, I'm going to think real hard about what you asked. I promise. Real hard. So when you wake up, if you wake up, you'll know I chose someone else. Tommy picked up the second stone and ground the two against each other in his hand, making Ricky wince. No one in prison ever got past 2 stones. Oh, that's good to know, Ricky answered, even though his casual answer did not hide his dread. Tommy smiled. I know. I know just how you feel. I swear, Keno, if we'd met under other circumstances, you and me, we could have been friends. Ricky closed his eyes. Not on your best day. Enraged, Tommy reached between Ricky's legs and squeezed. The pain engulfed him quickly, and he let himself go. Tommy stood back, his breathing labored. He ought to kill him. Then he realized. Ricky made that last statement to get him to kill him. He was smart, but not smart enough this time. Tommy motioned to his men. Cut him loose from the chair, then retape his hands and feet. Why? We're just going to dump him. Well, if he wakes up while you're transporting him and he's not secured, it will be your body being dumped. New scene. Bree turned over when someone opened the door of Ricky's bedroom. She's in here, she heard Eric say. Thank goodness, her mom whispered. Would you mind if I speak with her a minute? No, of course not. Eric came inside the room and quietly shut the door. He felt led to have a talk with the girl with whom his son was so deeply in love. Bree sat up, rubbing her eyes. Have they found Ricky? No, not yet. He sat on the side of the bed, scrutinizing the young lady. How are you feeling? He asked. She shrugged. I don't know. Numb, I guess. He nodded. Bree, you and I have never had a real heart-to-heart, he began. I have no problem with you, Eric. I know that. I actually appreciate the love and care you've given to my mom and my brothers. He nodded. I understand that. Loving and caring for your mom and brothers has been easy. I love your mother with all my heart, and she loves you and the boys. Therefore, me loving you and the boys has been a natural thing. Me? Of course, you. Did you think I don't love you? She looked down. Well, like you said, we've never really talked seriously about anything. Well, you're a headstrong young lady. You've always seemed to know what you want. You seemed happy and determined and focused. I saw no reason to interfere. Your career took off, and just look at you. You're America's sweetheart. Your mom and I, we couldn't be prouder of you. Bree looked up, surprised by his words. Thank you. You love acting? I do. I really do. I'm not all into the Hollywood celebrity thing, but I love to act, to create. I understand. So really, it doesn't matter what's written about you or Ricky as long as you can continue to create through your acting. Is that correct? Her eyes opened wide as if she realized that what he said was true. Yeah, I guess that's exactly right. She shook her head. None of that really matters now. Why? Well, with Ricky gone, my whole world has fallen apart. Well, as callous as this is going to sound, coming from Ricky's father, no matter what happens to Ricky, life goes on. Mine won't. Then you love him. I do. I should have told him. I should have. I didn't because I was afraid. What were you afraid of? I'm not sure. Would you mind if I tried to help you sort out your feelings? She gave a short laugh. Good luck. You told your mom that Ricky accused you of liking dangerous men. She nodded. I suppose it seems that way. I always seem to get involved with the ones that end up mistreating me. And I know Ricky told you that was because you look for someone like your father. How do you know all this? Well, Shelley and I have great communication. Communication is the key to a good relationship. It solves just about every problem. She nodded. My father is not a bad man. No, he's not. I'm not attacking him, not at all. However, Ricky is probably right about why you end up with the men you do. She sighed. My father was emotionally abusive to my mom. She just took it. He was silent as he thought. Are you angry with your father about that? Or with your mom? Bree looked up, surprised. She started to give him an automatic answer, then stopped and thought. Maybe both. He nodded. Good. You're being honest. She should have stood up to him. He might have given her more respect if she'd demanded it. Let me fast forward a minute. What has your mother taught you as far as your worth? My worth? From the time I was a little girl, I remember her telling me that I was special. The smartest, the prettiest, the funniest, the most talented. She told me I could do anything and be anything I wanted to be. She told me to not let anyone keep me down or tell me differently, especially just because I was a female. And those things are all true. But Bree, when your mom was a little girl, she was told that women were second class citizens, that they should just shut up and do what they're told. She was told that she was not very smart. She was not pretty. She was worthless. Her brothers were allowed to ridicule her daily. Both her father and her mother expressed their disappointment in her on a regular basis. And when she became pregnant with you at only 15 years of age, to them it was just par for the course. They were happy to send her off to live with your father. So unlike you, your mom had nothing inside her to use to stand up to your father. It took her almost 33 years to go deep down inside and find some tiny piece of courage and reach for her own happiness. He touched Bree's knee. Yet, she didn't let that keep her from telling you all the right things. It was a case of asking you to do what she says and not what she does, and she did that because she loves you. Bree's chin quivered. And now, though, now she knows her worth, right? Well, she's still learning. She still doesn't even believe she's beautiful. Compare that to yourself. You ooze confidence about your appearance. You ooze confidence about everything. Now let me go back a minute to your father because he's where you get a lot of your fear. Okay. Your father has his own battles to fight. He was a senior in college when he got your mom pregnant. That's statutory rape in my book. Nevertheless, it happened. I don't know his history, but classically, he sought a much younger woman because for some reason he needed to be able to dominate her completely, and he did. Who knows? Maybe his mother was a mean, spiteful woman who made this necessary for him, or maybe his own father taught him that's how you treat women. I don't know, and that's why I don't judge. I'm only going with the facts. So, this being the case, your mom never stood a chance, and your dad was allowed to handle her as he saw fit. And then you came along. We're not talking about me and her today, other than I have only her highest good in my constant thought. Okay, so I've lost track. It seems like we're going around in circles. What are we talking about? We are going around in circles. I wanted you to see your mother as the strong person she is, not weak like you've been thinking. I wanted you to see that your father had his reasons for being like he was, and now I'm not going to examine the men you've dated in the past. They are the past. I'm only concerned with the now. And you are a person of great worth, with a good upbringing, a good base, and so is Ricky. So you both know your own worth. And so I shouldn't fear being with Ricky. And so now that you have a little background, you should be able to figure out for yourself why you fear or why you withhold your love. You're not going to tell me what I should do, are you? Of course not. Please, Eric, I don't mind. I want you to. I'll listen to you. Oh, no. Then you would have someone to blame. And out. Sorry. Now it's up to you to work through some of the junk in your mind. Your anger with your mom for not standing up for herself, your anger with your father for treating your mother poorly, and your anger with Ricky for being exactly what you want him to be. I'm not angry with Ricky. Good. I want to tell you one more thing. I have grown to love you, Brianna. You act as if you're cool and tough, but I see your commitment to family. I see the way you dote on your brothers and Jeffy. I see the support you give your mom. I see your generosity and your strength of character, and I see your courage even now. I'm not courageous now. I'm scared out of my mind. I can't imagine what's happening to Ricky, and I keep thinking they probably won't kill him, and that's probably not their plan, but what if they accidentally go too far? I keep thinking that just yesterday he was here with me, and she choked on the sobs that welled up in her chest, and Eric pulled her to him, and she moved forward and laid her head on his lap, and he rubbed her back and comforted her the best he could. I know how you feel, Bree. I keep remembering him when he was little, like 3 or 4, and he could already do back handsprings and cartwheels and flips, and his tiny body was so very strong, even back then. And I keep wondering what Tommy is doing to that body, and I keep hoping that it stays strong. So you don't think they'll kill him either, do you? No, but I do think they're going to mess him up, and I think it's going to be bad, and I'm terrified at what we'll find when we find him. It's all my fault, Bree cried. Nonsense. Don't go down that path. Ricky was going running regardless of whether you had a little argument or not. Her head remained on Eric's knee, and she sniffed. I need him, Eric. I want him back. I love him. Eric sighed. Me too. New scene. Tommy jerked the door open. Okay, stop banging. He bent down and jerked the tape off Beth's mouth. He rubbed his thumb over the tender flesh of her cheek. Sorry, but I had to keep you quiet. You haven't let me out in 2 days, she screamed. He rose. Keep it up and you won't get out at all. She quieted after listening to what he'd just done to Ricky Kino. She was sure he had no qualms about being cruel to her. That's better. He looked her over. You are a mess. I bet you'd like to take a bath and get cleaned up, put on some clean clothes, have a meal. She looked up into his eyes, wondering if he was just being mean. I think we might be able to arrange that. She swallowed, her eyes filled with tears. Oh, come on now. Can't be that bad. Beth looked up. Are you going to keep me forever? Not forever. I have plans for you. I'm going to need you when I get the little Kino brat. Oh, please, Tommy, leave her alone. She's just a kid. She's innocent. He laughed. Well, she won't be by the time this is over. And when will it all be over, huh, Tommy? His eyes narrowed. It'll be over when I say it is. New scene. The agent touched Eric's shoulder and asked to speak with him. Eric stood and left the great room where the rest of the family had gravitated to watch the news. Top story was the missing actor, Ricky Kino, who'd now been missing for 2 days. They inaccurately reported the circumstances surrounding his disappearance and possible motives for his kidnapping, all ridiculous. It was comforting, however, to see the pictures, interviews, and clips of film the media had quickly put together. Anything new? Eric asked as they moved into the kitchen. South Beach Rentals rented a small motorboat to a Nicholas James day before yesterday. Eric frowned. Bree's bodyguard. She will probably not handle this well. Description? Large man, well over 6 feet, muscular build, dark hair, dark eyes. It could be Tommy. He could change his appearance. How long did he have the boat? He kept it for 12 hours. Could have gone anywhere in that amount of time. Anything else? A witness remembered a white van. A man fitting James's description got out of the passenger side. That would be a man fitting Crane's description got out of the passenger side at the harbor. The witness remembered something. She thought he was hunky, as she put it. The witness remembered because she thought he was hunky, as she put it. Did she get a good look at the driver? No. Eric nodded. Thanks. I'll keep you informed. No detail is too small, Eric said. I understand. Eric rejoined his family. Bree sat in the corner of one of the sofas, her knees drawn up in front of her, her arms wrapped around them. Her eyes were glued to the screen. Shelley sat in a large, overstuffed chair. Jeffy cuddled in her lap, quietly reading a book. Joey paced, looking up at the TV screen every few seconds. Justin and Jason were absent, putting together their own search. Angel and Kimmy were in the kitchen preparing food that would mostly go to waste. Mark sat with his head in his hands, his elbows propped on his knees, and Eric moved forward. Mark, he said softly. Everyone but Mark looked up. Eric placed a hand on the young man's back and he looked up slowly. Yes, sir. Eric smiled kindly. If you miss any more school, you won't be allowed to play on Friday. Mark shrugged. I don't care. Mark, Ricky would want you to play. Mark stood. I can't. How could I? Who cares about a freaking football game when Ricky is missing? Possibly dead. Ricky is my brother, Mark yelled. My brother. And if the coach and the school and the colleges can't understand that, then I don't want to be associated with them. Eric stood quietly and nodded. Well said. Joey approached his brother. You want to go looking? Mark nodded at his younger brother, then looked to his mom. We're going out. Ricky is not dead, said a small voice. They looked over at Jeffy. Her chin quivered. He's not. I know. I can still feel him. She rubbed over her heart. In here. Eric smiled at her. Well, that's good to know, baby girl. Thank you for helping us to keep that in mind. New scene. Whoa, Freddie complained to his friend. They usually got more than this, man. What's up with that new manager? She's stingy. They sat down in the alleyway just behind the diner. Used to be closing time offered a literal buffet, half-eaten hamburgers, bowls of chili, bread, lots of bread. Tonight it was a couple of foam plates with leftover salad and some crackers wrapped in cellophane and some leftover scrambled eggs. A man could starve like this, Freddie thought. He looked up when a van came to an abrupt halt at the end of the alley. Freddie had to squint to see what was happening. His eyes weren't as good as they used to be. A door in the side of the van opened, and there was some grunting and scuffling, and something large hit the pavement, and the van took off. Freddie looked at his friend. You thinking what I'm thinking? His friend nodded. He hadn't spoken in 10 years since Freddie had known him. You want to go check it out? His friend shook his head. It could be a dead body, Freddie said matter-of-factly. Could be something valuable. Could be someone needing help. I'm going to see. He stood up. If it looks like I'm in trouble, you run and knock on that door. Got it? The man nodded. Freddie edged his way to the end of the alley. He inched closer and realized he'd been right. It was a dead body. A man, all curled up in like a ball. He wore only shorts. His hands and feet were all taped together with duct tape. Whoa, Freddie uttered. He bent closer. The man groaned. Freddie jumped back. He turned and ran back down the alley. It is a body, old friend, but he ain't dead. He started toward the back door of the diner. I sure hope that stingy witch will open the door again. New scene. Eric. He raised his head, looking around him. He realized the entire family was still in the great room. The TV had been turned down to a soft chatter. Shelley and Jeffy slept in the same big chair. Mark and Joey had returned and were sleeping at opposite ends of a sofa. Bree was curled up at one end of another sofa. It was she who had spoken his name. He squinted at her. Yeah? Your phone was buzzing. Groggily, he reached for his phone to see who'd been trying to call him. He was distracted from his intent when Bree gasped. She sat straight up, grabbed the remote, turned up the volume. Eric glanced up to see Ricky's picture on the screen and the words, breaking story. The raised volume on the TV woke the rest of the family. This just in. The body of actor Ricky Kino was found early this morning behind a diner in downtown Los Angeles. Bree stood, her hand to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. The rest of the family came to their feet. It's not known at this time whether the actor is alive or dead. The body was discovered by two homeless men. Emergency vehicles were called and are currently en route to the hospital with Kino. As always, as soon as we know, you'll know. This is... Eric's cell phone went off again. He punched a button. Yes? He's alive, Jason said. Eric breathed, raised his eyebrows heavenward. Thank you. He waved his hand, getting everyone's attention. He's alive, he said loudly. He listened to Jason. I've been trying to reach you. They found him in an alley behind the Early Bird Diner. They'd taken him to the UCLA Medical Center. I'm on my way. He looked up as he ended the call. Take different cars, but no one goes alone. Keep your phones on and... He stopped. Come here. He motioned to everyone. He held his hand out to Shelley, who took Jeffy's, who took Mark's, who took Bree's, who took Joey's, who took Eric's. Eric closed his eyes. Father, we are so very grateful that... So very grateful. He couldn't go on. Well said, Mark offered. Eric smiled and nodded. Let's go. And that is the end of chapter 11.